The Office of the Arbiter for Financial Services, set up 8 years ago, is an autonomous and independent body. Its remit is to mediate, investigate and adjudicate complaints filed by eligible customers against financial services providers licensed by the MFSA, the Malta Financial Services Authority, the financial services regulator in Malta. Complaints range through the full gamut of financial services, from banking to insurance and pensions. The Arbiter, currently Mr. Alfred Mifsud, is totally independent and impartial of all parties concerned in each complaint. In the first of a two-part interview, Mr. Mifsud looks back at his first year in office, outlines the challenges he faced and is seeking to overcome, and explains the model for allocation of responsibility between PSPs, payment service providers, and PSUs, payment service users, in cases of payment fraud scams, which he issued at the end of 2023. What would you say has been the highlight of your first year in the post of Arbiter of Financial Services?
Well, I can say that I found here a very capable team working on, had been going on for several years since it was established, yes, way back in 2016. But one of the major challenges I found was a backlog of cases which were ready for decision and had been ready for decision for quite a few months. Yes. And I think the highlight has been that I made it my priority to ensure that decisions are taken with more promptness than had been, especially in the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I think when I moved in, there were about 60 or 65 cases ready for decision. And I think at the end of the year, we had very few cases left, which were pending for several months. Okay. And I hope that going forward, we will see the duration very much shortened, because I strongly believe that to be relevant to the people come here because apart from the informality and the lower costs of handling their complaints, timeliness is also very important for them, because to many people life has to go on. I mean, yes, they await the decision so that they can program their life accordingly.
Very good. So again, as a follow-up, you've mentioned a challenge in terms of your case backlog, but what other challenges can we say that you faced, and how are you working to overcome them?
Well, I think the major challenge is making sure that we remain and we become even more relevant to people in their daily lives. When the office was launched, obviously there was a sort of big bang. Yes. It was a new thing. There was never something like it with an executive decision powers. Yeah. So people referred to the Arbiter because there was a backlog from the years before the law came into existence. Don't forget that the law allowed cases going back to 2004 to be presented to the Arbiter. I must say that probably as this big bang up, fizzled out, yeah, it became a routine sort of thing, and we became less relevant to people's life. And
so the challenge is to
I think it's important that we maintain the program and the presence in people's life, knowing that there is an arbiter to whom you can refer cases, which many people might not be aware that they have this avenue to sort out their problems.
I know you come from the side of financial services, so I asked you, now that you are sitting on the other side of the fence, how do you view this different perspective?
Well, the other side of the fence I'm not too sure of, because when you say the fence, on one side of the fence there are the regulators. Yes. On the other side of the fence there are the operators. Yes. Now I am neither a regulator nor an operator. Okay. I am a sort of an arbiter somewhere in the middle, defending the consumers against the service providers. The difference is that in my previous posts, I was chairman of a bank. I was deputy governor of the central bank. I was director. My last position was director at the major bank.
Yes.
There you get a very macro view, you know, a very strategic view.
Yeah.
You don't get into the details of particular individual cases or complaints. What hits you when you are here, you're down to the micro level, you're down to the individual case, and not a question of strategy, but it's a question of one particular circumstance of an individual life, an event or an incident which happened, which is very different from the macro strategy which you follow when you're a director or chairman of a large institution. In between, then there are cases where you don't see just one case, but you see
a trend,
a number of cases with very similar characteristics. So collectively, then they take on some macro dimension, but not the same, you know, strategy dimension that I was used to. In
you're literally in the coal face, and you're knocking away and slowly finding these similarities.
Yes.
Excellent. One of the major developments this past year was the publication of a model for allocation of responsibility between payment service providers, PSPs, and payment service users in cases of payment fraud scams. How did this come about, and what are you seeking to achieve through this model?
Well, it is a fact that scams, financial scams, are proliferating all over the place, and they take various shapes. Even when we discuss with our peers in other countries, you know, one of the major challenges which they are seeing is the amount of complaints regarding scams. And we're not immune to that, especially I would say most of the scams locally fall into two categories. One is the scam related to crypto assets, because we have quite a vibrant crypto industry through the virtual asset legislation. Many big firms are operating here. Mostly their clients would be international, and the fraudsters are very active in that field, you know, because it's a field that they can not just scam the user, but actually the infrastructure of crypto infrastructure so far enables them to hide their riches and to hide their...
Facilitates anonymity.
Facilitates anonymity. That hopefully is being addressed through legislation which has not yet come into force. The other scam type, which is more relevant to local residents, is the scams which we've seen where people receive fraudulent messages on the normal channels which they normally deal with the banks. And obviously they believe them and they fall for them, and the end result of that would be that they are out of pocket for a few thousand euros. Which for people means a lot, because these are innocent people.
Some of them are their life savings.
That's right. Even though they are not millions, but individually, you know, they're very important. So when we start seeing these cases coming with similar characteristics, I thought that it would be better if we develop a model, even for transparency, to explain how we are reaching our decisions in order to decide these cases. The reason being that there is a European regulation, which we refer to as PSD2, which refers to these cases. Now, this was promulgated in 2016. And things have changed substantially since 2016. Especially the fraudsters have become much more creative, and much more capable, and much more persuasive. You know, so it has become.
Even AI is being used.
Yes, it's true, and it has become more challenging for the retail person who is busy with his life, to distinguish between a fraud and a genuine case. You know, so we had to take all this into consideration, especially because the legislation says that the bank is always responsible for these unauthorized payments, because most of the time these are unauthorized payments, otherwise they wouldn't be fraud. except when there is gross negligence.
Yes.
Now, gross negligence is a very hazy
Very generic
concept,
term.
very generic, and there is no real strong definition in the legislation of what is gross negligence.
Yep.
So we had to adopt this model
Uh-huh.
to say, in a local context,
Yep.
what are the factors which constitute or contribute to gross negligence. And the model states very clearly that, you know, most of the time it's not a case of, you know, duality. I mean, not a case of binary, that
Yes.
either
It's
the
black
bank
or
is
white.
fully responsible or the consumer is fully responsible. There could be some responsibility on both sides,
That's it.
taking into these various factors which define gross negligence.
Yep.
So this model allocates that
Responsibility.
It could be 100 and 0, it's not
Yes.
excluded, but it could be somewhere in between.
Of course.
And this model gives visibility. It should also define the expectations
Good.
of the complainant and of the bank.
And it shows the obligations of the bank to...
It gives transparency, and hopefully, and we are already seeing that these cases, when they come, knowing, you know, there is a model of how it is decided,
Yeah.
most of these cases would then be decided at the mediation level.
Okay.
Because the bank makes an offer knowing what, you know, where they stand with regards to the model. And the consumer could accept that offer because they know what the ultimate decision could land.
Okay.
So
Very good.
it's
So it
working.
facilitates also your workload.
Yes, it will.
In part 2 of this interview, Mr. Mifsud will give an outline of the judgments he has issued, how he sees the role of the arbiter evolving in the next 12 to 18 months, anticipating certain changes in the office's remit as part of Malta's regulatory structure, and his message to consumers and service providers in terms of what they can learn from the decisions of the Arbiter for Financial Services, including his expectations going forward. You can find all the information on the Office of the Arbiter for Financial Services at their website www.financialarbiter.org.mt, including a comprehensive, updated database of the Arbiter's decisions.